At SFSU, which I'm guessing is San Francisco State University, a group of transgender activists hold Riley Gaines hostage as she is trying to walk through the halls, reportedly because she has spoken out against Leah Thomas. So we'll be talking a bit about that, what has happened about that, and who is actually speaking up about that as we go. In other news, in other protest news even, protesters in Paris jumping across the pond storm BlackRock's Paris office holding red flares. So we'll talk about what they did and why they did that. AOC demands Justice Thomas be impeached for allegations of questionable ethics for accepting gifts from donors. Yeah, you got that too, right? And The Proud Boys' defense claims that undercover government agents accounted for at least 40 of the people at the Capitol Selfie Fest. It is going to be all this and more. Happy Good Friday. It is the best Friday. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. Happy Good Friday. I do hope that, I hope that some of you guys come and hang out with me, but I do hope the vast majority of our audience, our viewing audience, is not watching this live and instead is spending time with family. I hope that most of you got some time off from work to go back and spend some time with family. I'm going to tell you right now, actually, I have some time off from work here. The mainstream news actually was kind enough to give me a very, very light news load tonight. So we're going to go over what's going on here. However, I did come back out and say that if Papa Palpatine over there can, over from the Off Hours Discord server, can hold off his recording for his podcast till 9, I would join him tonight as well. I think we're going to get out of here before 9, or before 8 Central Time. It'd be 9 Eastern Time for him is when he's going to go back and record. So I'm probably going to be heading over there as well, and I'll record that, and we'll get that up on the platforms as well. But for now, for tonight, so we can get some time out here and get done, we're going to get right into everything. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming, such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the Already Conservative, the Porch Boys. Go check out, if you're into Twitter, go check out Tweets by Brit. If you're into video games, Mr. Behavior, and another news, except audio only style platform, go check out the No Gimmicks podcast, as we aim to bring you a better news and culture experience from the common man for the common man. For too long, we have got all of our news, culture, and politics from people who wear suits that cost more than our house. No more. Instead, help us build a better news experience from the common man for the common man. Go check out all that great programming. It's going to be a great time. And let's get down into what we have for the day so we can get you guys back out to your families and your friends and your Easter plans for the weekend. And let's start with the Dow, which didn't actually change today because the markets were not closed. Let's have a look over here on the Dow. We are at 33,485.29. Are we losing signal here? Are we dropping off? No, monitors are still showing green. All right, the Dow is still at 33,485.29. The markets were closed today. We did have some futures action from about 6 o'clock last night till 9:15 this morning, but the actual trading has not changed. So we're not going to spend a lot of time with this, but we'll talk just a bit about what the futures did, along with the jobs report, which I've not read yet. And we'll also have our layoffs report looking at the Bitcoin, which did trade today and traded down ever so slightly. The Bitcoin down 27,963 US dollars is the current point. That is down 89 US dollars and 10 US cents, or 0.32% on the day. So again, and this is a worldwide holiday too, with being associated with, I think Christianity is still the biggest religion in the world. I think Islam is still second at this point. Fact check me if I'm wrong on that. But with that being said, we are down just a little bit on the trade today, and I don't anticipate a lot of motion on that over the weekend. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I don't anticipate a lot, but we'll see what happens there. Looking in at the gas prices around the Madison area, if you're traveling, take heed. We are still holding steady with a little bit of drop entering the isthmus, but for the most part, we still have the 350, 350, 350, 350, 350 around the Madison area. So, I do hope that this doesn't put too much of a damper on your plans. I hope that if you do need to travel for family, that it's at least mitigating. It's not something that you're going to be crazy about or looking at $5 a gallon, but that's what we have there. Let's grab a little bit of reporting from Investors Business Daily. Dow futures rise on jobs report. Tesla cuts U.S. EV prices from Ed Carson with an advertisement. Dow futures rose slightly Friday, while Treasury yields jumped after the March jobs report, showed slowing. Say that 5 times fast. Hiring and wage growth, but also declining unemployment. Meanwhile, Tesla cut U.S. prices on all its electric vehicles. U.S. markets are closed today. The major indices held up well in a holiday-shortened trading week, with midweek pullbacks looking healthy and normal, but many sectors and leading stocks sold off hard, including Tesla. Alphabet broke out on Thursday. Alibaba finished a flash and aggressive entry. Let's look at the jobs report. The Labor Department reported that non-farms rose by 236,000, just below estimates for 240,000. That is down from February's revised 326,000. Private payrolls rose just 189,000, well below views for 223,000. Manufacturing unexpectedly dipped 1,000. The jobless rate also surprised, dipping to 3.5%. That is in short-term unemployment, not labor force participation. Back to long-term lows, however, the labor force participation rate climbed to a post-COVID high of 62.6%. So that is actually good news on the jobs report. That's still an unacceptable labor force participation, but the fact that it's going up is good. Hourly earnings rose 0.3% in February, in line. The annual gain cooled to 4.2%, below views for 4.3%, and the lowest in years. That 3-month annualized wage gain slowed to 3.2%. The average work week unexpectedly shortened to 34.4 hours. Unexpectedly, as people are gearing up for a recession. Despite the slower wage gains and private hiring, the odds of a Fed rate hike in May jumped to 67% Thursday from 49% on Wednesday. So that is where we are at with that. On the current futures, Dow futures rose 0.2, reversing from slim losses before the jobs report. The S&P advanced 0.2 and the Nasdaq rose 0.1. Stock futures stopped trading at 9:15 a.m. Eastern Time and will resume at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. The 10-year yield jumped 12 points to 3.41%, with trading halting at 12 noon Eastern Time. The 10-year yield hit a 7-month low on Thursday. Hong Kong and European markets were closed for Good Friday and will also be off for Easter Monday. And remember, overnight and over the weekend action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So some good news on the jobs front, which is not something that I thought that I was going to be saying for a very long time. Although again, the work week is shortening, which means that more people are being shifted out to part-time and more people are being held to a lower standard of work to try to save some and cut some costs. And there are going to be people that are going to be facing layoffs, and, well, the overtime is all but gone. I am grateful for the fact that I get overtime right now. All right, and in our layoffs report, we now have an idea of what's happening with McDonald's in the layoffs. McDonald's reduces some employees' compensation amid job cuts. From John J. Edwards III. McDonald's reduced some employees' compensation and titles as part of the restructuring this week that cost hundreds of workers their jobs, according to a person familiar with the situation. The Chicago-based food giant offered some employees the opportunity to remain on the payroll with changes to their compensation packages, including items such as bonuses and equity awards, said the person who was asked rather not to be named, discussing private information. McDonald's closed its offices for a few days earlier this week to have career conversations with all corporate employees, including those being let go. The The company said in January they plan to cut corporate jobs and eliminate certain initiatives, even as it accelerates new store openings. The job cuts would be final by April 3rd. McDonald's said at the time that it had about 150,000 employees at the end of 2022, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. So, again, we're actually not... As far as the layoffs go for McDonald's, they may be doing it right. A little bit of corporate stuff where I think a lot of people were hiring way too many people for corporate to begin with. But I mean, that's the name of the game and the nature. So many people were promised that if they just went to college, they could get to be great leaders in corporate America, like up at McDonald's or up at Intel or things like that. And it's not panning out for them anymore. I do wonder if this is going to have an impact on who goes to college and who doesn't. But instead of going off and getting rid of a bunch of people, which I think that they might still do at the bottom end, but instead of doing that right away, they are going out of the top. Maybe an appeasement to some of their left-wing followers, or maybe trying to convince some of the soy suckers to get more soy McDonald's burgers, but whatever they're doing it, I think, in a better way than just all you bottom people are gone. So we'll see what happens there. And we'll see what this does and pans out long term. And we're going to get into the main news of the day, including something that is breaking, as this broke after I started setting up Contemporary today. And this is another one from Ron Helton's favorite publication from his favorite politician. And that is, again, we are going to Bloomberg. Abortion pill blocked nationwide under order from U.S. judge. From Madeline Meckelberg. A judge in Texas suspended the U.S. government's decades-old approval of a key drug used in medication abortion, blocking access to the pill nationwide and closing one of the few remaining pathways to legal abortion. The preliminary injunction, issued Friday by U.S. District Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, who was appointed by President Trump, could soon end the sale and distribution of mifepristone, used as part of a 2-pill regimen to terminate a pregnancy within the first 10 weeks, while a lawsuit seeking more permanent ban on the drug proceeds. Kacsmaryk issued a stay on his order Friday to give the Biden admin 7 days to appeal. So, officially at this point, it is the abortion drug is still available. You can still go get it, however you do it. Again, as I've said, I'm not a huge fan of making abortion laws. As much as I'm against abortion, I lead by example on that, and trying to live my life in a way that I never need to have an abortion or need to go bring somebody to the abortion clinic, instead of trying to force that down onto other people who may actually worship Moloch. That may be more than just a meme on this channel. But as far as this goes, it does appear that what we're seeing here is a suspension, and Bloomberg doesn't have a lot of details for this right now. But it appears that this is a suspension of the FDA approval for safety, which, I mean, is obvious because one person dies with every... maybe 2 people, depending on if you're carrying twins or not, but at least one person dies every time you take mifepristone. Again, I don't know where this goes. There's another lawsuit pending trying to make a more permanent ban for this. This essentially takes away the licensing. This doesn't make it illegal to possess or anything else like that, or try to outlaw it, which is a stupid idea. I mean, penny royalty exists, number one, and number two, we have a strong history in this country of bootlegging. And I would still rather educate people to bring themselves into a place where they don't need to use this horrific drug, instead of trying to ban it from people who are going to find a way to do it anyway, punch themselves in the stomach, do the old coat hanger, penny royalty, things like that. But that is our breaking news of the day. Let's go talk about Riley Gaines. So I got a couple tweets for this one to start with. Riley Gaines herself tweets out, "The prisoners are running the asylum at SFSU. I was ambushed and physically hit twice by a man. This is proof that women need sex-protected spaces. Still only further assures me that I'm doing something right. When they want you silent, speak louder." Let's watch some of the video of this.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
You know, that doesn't quite roll off the tongue as quickly and effectively as, hey, hey, ho, ho, person I hate has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. We control the arts and the entertainment in the world, and we still can't get somebody to write a new chant, and they've got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho.
Yeah, you fucking transphobic bitch. I fucking see you. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights.
I can't tell because I don't know if I can't hear it over the chanting or whatnot, but I see the flashing in the video. Did somebody pull the fire alarm for this? Is that what I'm seeing here?
Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. You crying?
Well, that's one. And we've actually got another video clip of this one here from a different angle. Amused tweets out, this is a tweet, I didn't realize it was a tweet thread until I scrolled back. We actually have a couple more angles of this one here, so we'll look at that one.
And what we're hoping to do is to keep things peaceful and
make her lose her flight
and move forward. Okay? Tell her to pay us. Tell her to pay us, and then she could go. $10 each.
Yeah, these people sound really serious, don't they? Yeah, yeah, trans rights are human rights. Tell her to pay us $10 each. Like, are you serious?
Because you might get paid for this shit, so we could get paid for it too.
On a public campus that we attend.
So what's the end goal here? We're cooperating, so what's next?
So they need to do their job and get her out there. We created a path. It's here.
I can't speak to all of you when we're over talking to each other. We're not going to hear each other.
Don't let her hold.
Then no, you don't have to use. There's a difference. So what we want to do is maintain what we're doing right now, and as the speaker elicits, we can continue our conversations. And what we're hoping to do is to keep things peaceful. And
All right, so there's one. We've got another angle going on here. This is only a 5-second clip. Another question there is, what are the police doing? Absolutely nothing. So that is what we have with that. And let's go on and talk about what's actually happening here from KRON4. This is out of San Francisco. Save Women's sports advocate Riley Gaines says she was attacked for after speech at SFSU. I am going to go full on disclaimer. I have no idea who this person is. I don't. In fact, what happened today is the first time that I've heard this name at all. I thought she was a student. But now that I'm actually seeing this here, I'm starting to think that no, this is somebody who goes around and does this. From Mia Bell Salzano. Former D1 college swimmer Riley Gaines said she was verbally and physically assaulted following a speech she made on behalf of Save Women's Sports at San Francisco State University. Save Women's Sports aims to bar trans women from competing in women's sports and instead create a new division for where trans athletes would be allowed to compete and has been labeled as an anti-trans organization. I was ambushed and physically hit twice by a man, Gaines tweeted. This is proof women need sex-protected spaces. A video posted to Twitter shows police escorting Gaines through a crowd yelling, "Trans rights are human rights." Kevin McCarthy weighed in on Gaines' tweet. We'll be talking more about the GOP response later, saying, "This is an appalling attack on free speech on a college campus." Former Olympic decathlete and trans TV personality Caitlyn Jenner also offered Gaines support against the radical Rainbow Mafia, saying, "Never back down, never give up, I am praying for you," and condemning SFSU. Several other Republican leaders also expressed outrage at the incident, including the GOP's official account, which again we will be looking at. The incident comes amid rising tension in the U.S. around trans rights and whether or not trans female athletes should be able to compete in the women's division. The Independent Women's Forum, for which Gaines is a spokesperson, issued a statement condemning what it called an assault on Gaines. Gaines' agent, Eli Bremer, also issued a statement on the incident, saying in part, "Instead of a thoughtful discussion night at SFSU, Riley was violently accosted, shouted at, physically assaulted, and barricaded in a room by protesters. It is stunning that in America in 2023 it is acceptable for a biological male student to violently assault a woman for standing up for women's rights." This will not stop Riley from boldly educating people on the dangers of biological males in women's sports. She will continue to speak the truth against the radical left that no longer understands the difference between men and women. KRON4 reached out to representatives of SFSU about the incident and received the following comment. "We are conducting an ongoing investigation into the situation. There were no arrests related to the event. The disruption occurred after the conclusion of the event, which made it necessary for UPD officers to move the event speaker from the room to a different safe location." Which is a bit weird to me, honestly. It's a bit weird for me to hear them say, "Oh yes, no, we can't do anything except we're going to go back and move them to a safe location." So, I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. I might have broken the rules here. This material may not be published, broadcast, or rewritten, or distributed. Whoops. I didn't see the disclaimer until after the fact. So, note to self, KRON, after this point, is no longer permitted. And I will not be using them to share the story, even though it's the local source. Let's grab one from CNN instead. College swimmer said she was assaulted at an event opposing the inclusion of trans women in women's sports. From Natasha Chen and Sherry Mossberg. Former NCAA swimmer Riley Gaines said she was assaulted on Thursday on the campus of San Francisco State University. Gaines was at the school to speak about her views opposing the inclusion of transgender athletes in women's sports, according to the event announcement. A video Gaines posted from the event showed her moving quickly while surrounded by security officers. A protester can be heard shouting, "Trans rights are human rights," but the video is shaky and does not appear to show an assault. The police department did not immediately respond to an inquiry by CNN of the nature of the disruption or whether the investigation is related to the alleged assault. When CNN requested more detail on the nature of the disruption, whether there was an investigation is related to the assault, UPD did not immediately respond. Gaines tied transgender swimmer Leah Thomas for 5th place in the women's 200-meter freestyle at the 2022 NCAA Swimming and Diving Championships, and has been vocal about her opposition to the inclusion of trans women in the women's swimming. Gaines' appearance was booked by a recognized student organization. University spokesperson Kent Bravo told CNN, and organized by conservative organization TPUSA. We're going to get to them in just a minute, because I really want to talk about this and what they're doing with this. "This is an appalling attack on free speech on a college campus," McCarthy said on Twitter. House Republicans stand with Riley Gaines in her brave and tireless efforts to protect women's sports. So, we've got a little bit of the response that I want to go over here for a bit. I'm going to skip the New York Post one off of this, but I want to talk about this. Instead of reading from the New York Post, I want to talk just a bit about this. Now, I understand that free speech is free. That much I do understand. And that if there's a student organization that will have you, that you should be able to speak there. But there is something to be said about going into the lion's den and expecting to have a peaceful, free speech incident without anybody coming back down and screaming at you. And I question sometimes the ethics of neocons like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA for what it is they're trying to do. Now, Charlie Kirk, to his credit, does put on shows for speakers all over the country. They go to all kinds of campuses, left, right, center, etc. But see, one of the things with this is the fact that we get the sound bites and the clips when they work with conservative organizations on places like Berkeley or SFSU, or sometimes going to an HBCU or the University of Wisconsin-Madison, for that matter. If we're going to go down into that, these incredibly well-known liberal campuses across the country seem to be the ones that are targeted by TPUSA. And again, and I know that they go to places like Montana State and San Antonio, whatever the college is there. And yes, even Dallas being much more conservative than what they did in these California campuses. Now, if I ever got famous enough to be requested as a speaker for situations, for something, even though I myself am not a Republican, I know that I am grouped into the conservative circle. Because I don't agree with Joe Biden, the Democrat Party, or the role of government in my life. I am considered by them that go to these schools as a conservative speaker. Which means that if I ever did get famous enough that like PragerU or TPUSA or somebody would have me as a speaker somewhere, I can say that if they gave me the venue and it was like the Orpheum in Madison, we'll use that as an example, or even to go to the University of Wisconsin, or if they wanted me to go to what's another good example, a place that I probably wouldn't go. I wouldn't go to San Francisco State or Berkeley or anything like that, because I know what would happen, and in doing so would put myself and people that I care about, because a lot of them are going to want to come and see me speak, into direct danger. With the nature of the internet, with that, any speech that I give can be broadcast on YouTube, both live and in replay, at a moment's notice, across the world, anywhere. I would much rather go to like UW Whitewater or even Viterbo and go give a speech there on a more traditional and more conservative campus, and then let the Republican Club. Yes, I know it'd be cool for them. I understand that there's a Republican presence in these schools still, and they want to come up and they want to get the autographs and whatnot. But again, if I ever got to famous to that point where I would be in that situation, I really feel like I would have to decline going to places like this. I would have to, because especially with TPUSA, when they're doing this out of here, they're trying to rile up this kind of reaction. That's what they're going for. They want to take the recording, they want to spread it out there and say, see, these leftists are animals! And watch that be the part that gets cut, by the way, by Jared Holt, somewhere down in the middle. Me saying, these people are animals! But that's Charlie Kirk's end goal. The left are the violent ones. Look at how unhinged they are. That's the nature of the beast, and this is what we're resisting, and blah this and blah that. And when realistically and honestly, there are better ways to go about this. So that is what we have there. Let's talk about the reaction here from Fox News. GOP leaders speak out following ambush of ex-Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines' shameful behavior. This is from Paula Didage. GOP leaders are calling for those involved in the ambush of decorated former NCAA Division I swimmer Riley Gaines to be held accountable after the 12-time All-American collegiate athlete said she was physically attacked following a speaking engagement at San Francisco State on Thursday night. Let's see. Republicans have since condemned the incident and called for those involved to be held accountable. So we listened to what McCarthy had to say already, but we've got Marsha Blackburn, Cindy Hyde-Smith here. In fact, I think I've got one that I can even possibly bring out from her Twitter feed. that maybe has another angle of this, but let's read what they have to say. Marsha Blackburn, San Francisco State and law enforcement must take immediate action to hold those who assaulted Riley accountable. We will not allow the violent radical left mob to silence us. This is truly shameful behavior, said Cindy Hyde-Smith. Riley Gaines has done nothing more than speak out about the dangers of allowing biological men to compete in women's sports and is met with violence. Joni Ernst backed Gaines in a statement to Fox News Digital. I stand with Riley in her message, biological men should not be allowed to compete in women's sports. Our female athletes deserve fairness, safety, and the ability to win top scholarships and titles. No amount of violence and harassment from the radical left will stop strong women like Riley from standing up for the truth and what is right. And the last one we will grab is from Katie Britt out of Alabama, who called out the radical mob rule and instead encouraged civil debate in a statement to Fox News Digital. I stand with Riley Gaines. Women's sports are under attack by the far left, and Riley should be applauded for defending the rights of girls and young women across America to compete fairly and safely. Political violence has no place in the U.S. Those responsible must be held accountable. Our country should encourage civil debate and discourse, not tolerate radical mob rule that seeks to silence political opposition. We're going to go one more, because Mike Pence even got into it. Well, last night, the courageous and accomplished athlete, Riley Gaines, who was held hostage and assaulted for speaking about women's sports. The latest attack on free speech and conservative values on a college campus is a disgrace. This must stop now. I would come back out and applaud Riley Gaines in person for what she did, except for I can't book my wife to come out here with us, and she has to be in the room. And Gina Carano also getting in on this, who is, by the way, a noted female athlete of her own. Disgustingly abusive, Gina Carano defends swim champ Riley Gaines after attack from left-wing campus mob. Actress and former MMA artist Gina Carano came to the defense of champion collegiate swimmer Riley Gaines after she was forced to barricade herself in a safe room to protect herself from a threatening crowd of students at San Francisco State. Carano wrote on social media that the campus leftists were entirely out of line for their attack on Gaines, a leading proponent of protecting female sports leagues from men who identify as women. This is so disgusting, abusive, and harmful, and it's encouraging acts of violence against women, Carano remarked. These protesters cannot debate this with logic or words, so they resort to bullying and violence. Cowards. Carano, who maintained a 7-1 record when she competed in MMA, Strikeforce added that female sports leagues promote well-being among their participants and that permitting men to compete in the events could eliminate such opportunities. Which is an excellent point, by the way. So, good on Gina. My crush on Gina notwithstanding, of course. And that is what we have there. And in other protest news, this one is not quite so much protest, this is more on the transgender side of it. We talked about the veto-proof majority in North Carolina yesterday. Well, according to several outlets, they wasted no time in making sure that they got something across the table, now that they have the veto-proof majority. And it will be interesting to see how their new congressperson votes with them. I can't think of her name right offhand, but we'll be talking about that in just a moment. North Carolina Republican lawmakers file bills to control transgender youth sports participation. From ABC Eyewitness 11. North Carolina Republican lawmakers filed several bills aimed at regulating transgender youth, especially when it comes to participation in sports. These bills are similar to the ones GOP lawmakers pushed a couple years ago. While those bills failed, Republicans are hopeful that their new supermajority, achieved by getting Mecklenburg Democrat Tricia Cotham, that's the name, to switch parties, will be able to force the bills through. There are 2 bills in the legislatures that would ban transgender athletes in some way. Legislation in the House and Senate would require all sports teams to be designated as male, female, or co-ed, based on their biological sex at birth. I support transgender athletes, their right to gender identify as they see fit. However, competitive sport is one of the few places in our society where sex differences matter. Former UNC women's basketball coach Sylvia Hatchell said Hatchell resigned amid controversy in 2019. It would apply to public, private, and charter schools that are part of the State High School Athletic Association, as well as schools that they play. So, it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. And really, honestly, the most interested that I am in this is to see where Kotham votes. Because I'm sure this is going to get vetoed. In fact, I'm almost positive this is going to go get vetoed. And then we will see just how veto-proof the majority is. So, we'll watch this one. Another protest. SUNY Albany protesters march, dance, and destroy Bible to shut down conservative speaker Ian Howarth. Howarth says, last night I was at University of Albany to speak with TPUSA. My argument, free speech is being destroyed on college campuses, and like clockwork. Some deranged protesters showed up and used the heckler's veto to try to shut down the event. Let's watch. New York college students aggressively protested a conservative campus speaker event this week that argued that free speech is being destroyed on college campuses. The State University of New York at Albany students marched and chanted and danced and even destroyed a Bible in an effort to shut down the TPUSA seminar, which was organized by a student group headlined by conservative Ian Howarth. And like clockwork, some deranged protesters showed up and used the heckler's veto to try to shut down the event, Howarth wrote in a tweet. Videos show the students storming the event in an attempt to shut it down. Their chants ranged from, "This is what free speech looks like," and "Trans rights are human rights," to "Fuck you fascists," and "Ian sucks." Creative, of course. The smiling protesters formed a conga line that circled the small gathering, while some kicked off their shoes to dance in front of the podium where Howarth was due to speak. SUNY Albany told the Post that the students remained peaceful throughout the entire demonstration. No one was injured, and although one crumpled Bible was left in their wake. Only 2 students were issued tickets by the university police because they tried to gain access to an area that was closed for the event. So, the conga line really tells me that they're serious. And I wouldn't say that's completely destroyed. I would say that's still usable. In fact, I would like to get my hands on that Bible. The Bible that survived the protest. What else do we have? Some more protest news, actually. Randy says, are they saying love TPUSA? I think so. From Fox, 3 Dems facing expulsion after storming State House compared to when 3 were crucified on Good Friday on MSDNC. The only problem with me trying to get the video on this right now is the fact that they put the "please turn off your ad blocker" on this. But Fox News showed the video. I'm going to try to get around this. I don't think I can. I can't. Ahead of Easter, MSDNC hosts and commentators used Christianity to attack the recent vote to expel the Tennessee House Democrats from storming the state capitol with gun control protesters. Gloria Johnson, Justin Pearson, and Justin Jones all faced votes of expulsion on Thursday after leading and participating in the protest that disrupted House proceedings last week. After each representative spoke on their behalf, the GOP-dominated House voted to expel Pearson and Jones while falling short of the votes needed to expel Johnson. Ahead of the vote for Pearson, Mark Thompson spoke on the readout with Joy Reid to blast Tennessee Republicans, comparing the situation did the three Democrats did the crucifixion of Christ alongside 2 criminals on Good Friday. We'll see what happens with Justin Pearson, but for these Republicans in Tennessee to do this, and for them to be so evangelical and as Bible-thumping as they are, not to realize the irony in trying to expel 3 today on the eve of when tomorrow the 3 were crucified simply for standing up for what is right and trying to end gun violence in this country, Thompson said. Let me look at one other place here. I spent a little while I was on lunch today trying to find this video. And no, anything that they have of the Reverend here is from like 2 years ago. Which is lame. I was trying to find this video in a place other than on Fox News today. Reed was more combative after Thompson's comment, attacking Republicans as apostates for calling themselves Christians, while supporting the Second Amendment. I will just close on his behalf by saying it's apostasy to call yourself a Christian and claim that you believe in God and Jesus, when what you believe in is death. What you believe in is distributing as much death as possible, to as many people as possible, even your own children, because you don't love them like you love firearms. You don't love them like you love the NRA, Reed said. Was this just... Well, okay, it's MSNBC. I know what this was already. But yes, this was pretty much just a speech of talking points from MSNBC. Like, I would say probably just about every other segment that they have on MSNBC. So, that's what we have there. She added, don't go to church on Sunday and put, your money in the basket, hoping it will grow as a seed and multiply, because you're literally all you're multiplying. The Republican Party is death, and eventually you're also going to multiply your own destruction, because these young people are going to figure out one day that they can vote you out, and they're going to vote you out. Your own children are going to vote you out. Watch it happen. Watch God work. Well, our friends on the left, it is a religion. It always has been. Randy says, imagine being dumb enough to make that make sense. Well, we've got even more protest news, this time going across the pond to our friends in Paris. Protesters stormed BlackRock's Paris office, holding red flares and firing smoke bombs. From Pierre Barron and Hannah Ziadi. Demonstrators forced their way into a building that houses BlackRock's office in Paris on Thursday, taking their protest against the government's pension reforms to the world's biggest money manager. Video shared on social media showed protesters entering the senatorial office block located near the Opera Garnier Opera House, holding red flares and firing smoke bombs. About 100 people, including representatives of several labor unions, were on the ground of the building for about 10 minutes, chanting anti-reform slogans. BlackRock's office is located on the 3rd floor. The meaning of this action is quite simple. We want the headquarters of BlackRock to tell them the money of workers for our pensions, they are taking it. Jerome Schmidt, spokesperson for the French union SUD, told CNN affiliate BFM TV BlackRock declined to comment. Let's watch.
This is just into CNN. The video you are seeing here, these are protesters in Paris who have stormed the offices of the investment firm BlackRock in the middle of the city. In the video, you can see protesters are chanting, waving flags, carrying flares. Smoke is filling the building. It is the 11th day of nationwide demonstrations against the country's new pension bill, If you're unfamiliar, it raises the retirement age from 62 to 64. It has infuriated Parisians everywhere. CNN correspondent Melissa Bell is live in Paris. Melissa, can you tell us what you saw on the ground here?
Well, this is where the main march is just preparing to get going, Caitlin. Let me show you around. The union saying just within the last hour or so that they stand united. They intend to continue their protest action. The 11th day here, there are strikes going on nationwide, and this march will get going shortly. The government for now, Caitlin, saying it's going to stand firm. But you mentioned those images a moment ago. Those were rail worker union workers who managed to occupy that building for about 10 minutes. And it's a reminder really of what we've seen the last couple of weeks. What had been largely peaceful protests since they began in January, really turning a lot more violent and a lot more confrontational with the police. And that's something we expect to see again today. 11,000 policemen that are out across the country to try and keep the peace. But some groups determined to turn these as violent as they can. For now, we're waiting to go. The talks that took place between the unions last night and the government collapsed. Once again, both sides failing to agree, with the government vowing that it will push this retirement age up from 62 to 64 and that it will not back down even in the face of these repeated strikes and marches.
And as CNN's Melissa Bell reports for us now, the clashes between...
So just a note to our friends on the left who think that what happened on January the 6th is a thing. This is what an insurrection looks like. A few people walking around the Capitol is not an insurrection. In fact, what you guys put on in D.C. on Trump's inauguration was probably closer to insurrection than what you think January 6th was. So... we've got Fast Company telling us why they chose BlackRock's office in Paris today. Why French protesters stormed BlackRock's office building in Paris today. From Sam Becker. By the way, just so you know, if this was the U.S., every single one of these people would have geo-trackers on their phones going off, and they'd be out there, and the FBI would currently be looking at their social media to see which way they voted. Paris remains in the grip of large-scale protests following government pension reforms, and these protests are now spilling out into the streets. Protesters on Thursday briefly left the streets and forced their way into a building where offices of asset manager BlackRock are located, according to a report from Reuters, which also has an office in the same building, when videos showed dozens of protesters entering the office holding flares, shooting off fireworks, and chanting. Protesters specifically targeted BlackRock's offices due to the company's role in managing and privatizing pensions, which are at the heart of the French government's recent reforms. Further reporting from CNN says that while the protesters did manage to enter the building's main floor, BlackRock office is on the third floor, and it was not reached. All told, protesters were in the building for around 10 minutes. 10 awesome minutes. You love to see it. You love to see it. So they're pissed at BlackRock because BlackRock, I don't know if they were convinced that BlackRock is what's convincing the government to do so, or the fact that it is the reason the government's doing so, or that they hate BlackRock for buying up all the property and making it uber expensive. But that's what they have for there. From the Daily Wire. Back on our side of the pond. Well, this one actually crosses the pond. Pentagon probing release of alleged secret U.S. NATO plans to arm Ukraine. From the Daily Wire. Tim Pierce reporting. The Pentagon is investigating how alleged secret U.S. and NATO plans for building up Ukraine's military ahead of a planned offensive against Russia leaked online. I think first we actually need to look into and understand why we are building up and planning an offensive for the Ukraine. This was supposed to be a defensive war. Versions of the document dating back to March 1st on assessments of Ukraine's military strength and what Ukraine is expected to need before the offensive have surfaced on Twitter and Telegram, a messaging app with wide reach in Russia. The documents do not include battle plans or a date for when the push against Russia is expected to begin, but they contain a wealth of other information that has not been made public, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper. We are aware of the reports on social media posts, and the department is reviewing the matter, said Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh. Since the war began, intelligence sharing between the U.S. and Ukraine has increased substantially. The documents that have appeared online, if authentic, represent a serious intelligence breach that could harm the intelligence sharing relationship. Or, and hear me out, we've come to a point where people have tried to find a way to throw the Ukraine under the bus because this is starting to get to that point where people are starting to get Ukraine weary. You notice we don't hear a lot about that? All of a sudden? The documents have been widely viewed and shared by Russian military bloggers and analysts. Mikhailo Podolyak, the advisor to the head of the Office of President of Ukraine, on Telegram blamed Russia for the leak, while at the same time asserted the documents floating around online are fake. So if they're fake, what exactly is the problem with them leaking? You can't play both sides of that fence. The documents have nothing to do with Ukraine's real plans and are based on a large amount of fictitious information, Podolyak wrote, according to CNN. Russia is looking for any way to seize information initiative, to try to influence scenario of plans for Ukraine's counteroffensive, to raise doubts, to compromise previous ideas and frighten with awareness. But these are just standard elements of Russian intelligence operational game and nothing more. It has nothing to do with Ukraine's real plans. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov did not comment on the authenticity of the documents that have appeared online, but told CNN, "We do not have slightest doubt about direct or indirect involvement of US and NATO in conflict between Russia and Ukraine." And by the way, when I found this out, I took this from the Daily Wire just because of the actual detail that's going to be in this instead of the CYA, part of the Democrat Party, and their propaganda arm. But this is actually even being reported by the New York Times, a former newspaper. We'll look at this very briefly because, well, the vast majority of the information we needed to know was in the Daily Wire article. But for green check verification status from Helene Cooper and Eric Schmidt, classified documents detailing secret American and NATO plans for building up the Ukrainian military ahead of a planned offensive against Russian troops were posted this week on social media channels, senior Biden admin officials said. The Pentagon is investigating who may have been behind the leak of the documents, which appeared on Twitter and on Telegram, a platform with more than 500 million users that's widely available in Russia. Military analysts said the documents appear to have been modified in certain parts from their original format, overstating American estimates of Ukrainian war dead and understating estimates of Russian troops killed. Or maybe that's the actual intelligence and you've been trying to understate and then overstate in the opposite direction for wartime propaganda. Frankly, and again, I don't believe any of this. I don't believe any of the information coming from Russia or a Russian leak, or what's coming from our own government, or what's coming from Volodymyr Zelensky. But it is telling that both sides are trying to say, yes, we are killing way more of the other side than the other side is killing of us. Alright, let's grab another one from The Wire. Ethically questionable. AOC demands Justice Thomas be impeached over allegations of questionable ethics. This is so stupid, it's not even funny. From Joseph Curl. Now, I don't mind the leftoids because I do see it as problematic. I don't see it as impeachable for a Supreme Court justice side, but I do see it as problematic for a Supreme Court justice to be accepting donations from GOP donors. But especially given the picture that we have up here, the last person that needs to be calling attention to this is Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, D-Twitch. This is one where she should have just curled up in her corner and shut the F up. Let Ilhan go out there and raise the stink about it. Nobody's giving her a address except for her non-brother husband, Tim Minette. They have other ethics problems, but it has nothing to do with donors. Oh, the hypocrisy. The Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, D-Twitch, is demanding the impeachment of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas after he was accused of accepting luxury gifts from a top Republican donor. Okay, puppy, this goes beyond party or partisanship, okay? This degree of corruption is shocking, almost cartoonish. Thomas must be impeached. Chavez took the opportunity to impugn the entire Supreme Court, headed up by Chief Justice Roberts. Barring some dramatic change, this is what the Roberts Court will be known for. Rank corruption, erosion of democracy, and the stripping of human rights, okay, puppy? An investigation by ProPublica alleges that Thomas took luxury trips and traveled on yachts and private jets owned by Dallas businessman Harlan Crow. The publication said Thomas never disclosed the travel. But Chavez herself is being probed for allegedly accepting lavish gifts. Documents released last month by the Congressional Ethics Committee show she begged for free tickets worth $70,000 to the Met Gala, the world's #1 social and fashion event. Yeah, see, this is why I said, I actually do think it's problematic if this is true. I would like to see an investigation and see if there is some merit to what ProPublica did. It is right now only an allegation. But again, I don't see this as something that rises to the level of impeachment of a lifetime seat. And maybe if there are more details or possible conversations that would be to sway the judge, I might actually change my mind on this. But I would need to see a lot of proof, especially with as hard as people like Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez and Ilhan brother husband Omar and all the rest of the progressives out there have been on Clarence Thomas specifically. And again, Chavez herself should have come back out there and whispered in brother husband's ear and said, "Hey Ilhan, okay? I know I can't speak about this because of what happened with the Met Gala, but we need to talk about Clarence Thomas and get the message out there, okay, puppy?" And some details on this, one coming from the USA Today. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas says he wasn't required to report trips with GOP donor. And it's still not a good idea, dude. You may be absolutely right off that, but it's still not a good idea. That still looks really bad, Clarence. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas pushed back Friday against criticism after a report revealed he had secretly accepted lavish trips funded by a GOP donor over the past 2 decades, but had failed to report them, a possible violation of federal law. In a statement, Thomas acknowledged that he and his wife Ginny had joined billionaire GOP megadonor Harlan Crow and his wife Kathy on a number of family trips during more than a quarter century they've known them. He described the couples as among our dearest friends. Early in my tenure in the court, I sought guidance from my colleagues and others in the judiciary. I was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who did not have business before the court was not reportable, Thomas said. And see, that is an important side of this that Chavez is leaving out. I don't know where this goes, by the way. I know it doesn't look good. But an important detail that, again, was left out by the wire is the fact that these guys have known each other for a quarter century. I've endeavored to follow that counsel throughout my tenure and have always sought to comply with the disclosure guidelines. The guidelines are now being changed as the committee of the Judicial Conference responsible for financial disclosure for the entire federal judiciary just this past month announced new guidance, Thomas said. Well, and again, you can't change the rules and retroactively enforce. It is, of course, my intent to follow this guidance in the future, he said. So, I would have to see more details of this, but there's like 50-50 that there's not a case versus there is a case. Regardless, I would still say that in a position like Clarence Thomas is, even having known this guy for so many years, I probably would still avoid this if it was me. This kind of activity. And we'll skip the CNN one for that. From the Blaze. Proud Boys. The Pride Boys defense attorney claims at least 40 undercover government agents and informants at Capitol Selfie Fest. Some appear to have played roles. Hold on. Of instigators on January 6th. From Paul Saka. The defense attorney for a member of the Pride Boys claimed that there were at least 40 undercover government agents and informants operating at the Capitol Selfie Fest on January 6th. Currently standing trial in D.C. are Pride Boys members Dominic Pizzola, Ethan Nordine, Joseph Biggs, Zachary Rail, and Enrique Tarrio, the group's former leader. Pizzola's lawyer, Roger Roots, filed a motion requesting the government reveal all informants, undercover operatives, and other confidential human sources relating to the events of January 6th. I mean, it's not going to happen, but they should. The federal prosecutors in this case are refusing to disclose information regarding these non-FBI informants. Roots claims in the filing the existence and likely conduct of these CHS is almost certainly exculpatory for Pizzola. Pizzola has become aware that the largest number of undercover CHSs on January 6 belong to agencies other than the FBI. The filing reads, at least 2 law enforcement agencies each outnumber the FBI in terms of running undercover agents, informants, and CHSs on January 6th. First, the DHS Metro Police had at least 13 undercover plainclothes agents among the Pride Boys and other patriots on January 6th. The filing continues. Next, there appears to be some 19 CHSs on January 6th, belonging to an agent called HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. The filing states, when added to the 8 FBI CHSs now acknowledged by the prosecutors, that means that there were at least 40 undercover informants or agents doing surveillance among the defendants on January 6th. Some of these undercover Metro officers marched with the Pride Boys, the motion notes, and some appear to have played roles of instigators, in that they are seen on body-worn videos chanting "Go, go, go, stop the steal, whose house, our house" on January 6th. Others generally follow the demonstrators toward the Capitol. So I would actually like to see some of this tried out and see who's there. But again, this is part of the reason that when we were talking about the Trump Tower and what was happening there, I had said from the beginning, if you are going to protest at Trump Tower or the Manhattan DA's office, watch out, because it's not going to be just the FBI or people that are hired by the FBI. It's going to be, I asked the question, the NYPD has required all its officers to be in uniform for what's happening with the indictment. What about the ones that are going to be in the crowd telling people that they have to go into the Manhattan DA's office to show justice? What about the ones that are handing out the bricks? Do those ones have to be in uniform too? Because it might go against what they're trying to pull. And as I've always said, I understand that there was a riot at the Capitol on January the 6th. But that's where the similarities to reality end, and I don't think that what happened there, especially given what I saw from Stephen Ignoramus's cell phone, I don't believe for a second that this happened the way that's been presented to us, breathlessly, by the mainstream media for the last 2 years. From Wall Street Journal. Some worldwide news. We're going to buzz over the rest of this here, and yeah, we're going to head out of here early tonight, which is good. I can get you guys back to your family pretty quick. From the Wall Street Journal, Japan breaks with U.S. allies, buys Russian oil at prices above cap. From Peter Landers, the U.S. has rallied its European allies behind a $60 a barrel cap on purchases of Russian crude oil, but one of Washington's closest allies in Asia is now buying oil at prices above the cap. Japan got the US to agree to the exception, saying it needed to ensure access to Russian energy. The concession shows Japan's reliance on Russia for fossil fuels, which analysts said contributed to the hesitancy in Tokyo to back Ukraine more fully in its war with Russia. Well, the rest of Europe had the same problem. The rest of Europe had the exact same problem. Fake news, fake wars, fake money. Fake news. It's the enemy of the people, the fake news. While many European countries have reduced their dependence on Russian energy supplies, Japan has stepped up its purchases of Russian natural gas over the past year. Japan is the only G7 nation not to supply lethal weapons to Ukraine, and Prime Minister Fumio Kishida was the last G7 leader to visit Ukraine after Russia's invasion. Mr. Kishida has said the G7 summit he is hosting this May in his hometown of Hiroshima will demonstrate solidarity with Ukraine. Tokyo said it is committed to supporting Kiev and can't send weapons because of long-standing export restrictions the cabinet has imposed on itself. Oh, we absolutely will not allow Russia this outrageous act. We are imposing strict sanctions on Russia in order to stop Russian invasion as soon as possible, said Chief Government Spokesperson Hirokazu Matsuno. The oil purchases were tiny and authorized by the U.S. Represent a break in the unity of U.S.-led efforts to impose a global $60 a barrel cap on purchases of Russian crude. And I understand that up until very recently, the majority of oil in the world was traded with the U.S. dollar. But I gotta ask the question, what right does the U.S. have? And I'm a free market guy. I like the fact that our country has hegemony over the rest of the oil market, because it's beneficial to me, but I don't like that being enforced on people. What right does the U.S. have to tell Russia what they can and can't sell oil for across the world? We have too much government, and we are not world police. I would say that we're World Highway Patrol because of the shipping lanes. And that we try to be world police, but we suck at it royally. From KALB5, a story that I have been trying to get to for a week. Because this is kind of an important one. Exactly, Randy. Japan is supporting Ukraine by not sending weapons and buying oil from Russia above the agreed cap. With friends like these, who needs enemies? Reminds me of the joke from the beginning of Finding Nemo. Yeah, with friends like these, who needs an enemy? From KALB, NBC, CBS, and the CW out of Louisiana. Ex-Maryland political aide dead after manhunt. From the Associated Press and Sarah Brumfield and Leah Skeen. The 3-week manhunt for a former top aide to Maryland's governor ended in his death after a public corruption charges cut his tenure short and ultimately sent him on the run from federal agents when he skipped a court appearance. Roy McGrath, who served as Larry Hogan's chief of staff, died from gunfire Monday night when FBI agents confronted the fugitive outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. Despite the twists and turns in the case, McGrath consistently expressed his innocence and was adamant from the beginning about taking the case to trial in hopes of clearing his name, according to his lawyer, Joseph Murtha. But when his March 13th trial date arrived, McGrath surprised his attorney by failing to appear at the U.S. District Court in Baltimore. We were moving forward and preparing for a trial, but you never know what's going on in someone's mind, Murtha said on Tuesday morning. The rest is 3 weeks of uncertainty and a tragic ending. Knox County Sheriff's Office, that's the picture caption. McGrath served as Hogan's chief of staff for just 11 weeks, resigning in August 2020 because it became public he had received a $233,650 severance payment from his old job as head of state-owned corporation before moving into the governor's office. McGrath was indicted in 2021 on accusations that he fraudulently secured the severance payment, equal to a year's salary, as the head of the Maryland Environmental Service by falsely telling the agency's board that the governor had approved it, though Hogan denied acknowledging knowledge of that. He was also accused of fraud and embezzlement connected to the roughly $170,000 in expenses. When McGrath's professional reputation suffered because of the federal criminal charges, the blow was devastating for him personally, Murtha said. I think he felt like he'd been destroyed. He felt completely betrayed. Murtha said Tuesday the biggest unanswered question is whether McGrath was killed by law enforcement or died from a self-inflicted wound. Officials haven't said whether McGrath was armed during the fatal encounter. And my money, by the way, was on the fact that he was dead before, and I still have questions about how this went down. I do. I'd like to see some body cam footage, but the FBI is not required to do that or put anything else back out of there. And I really want to see where this went. I had a bunch of money riding on the fact that he was dead before this got to the before the feds got to him, and that was why he skipped his bail. Like he got in a car accident, or kidnapped, or something on the street, or something. But apparently, allegedly, he was alive, and they found him alive, and then he told the coppers, "Oh, you're never gonna take me alive, copper." From the Daily Mail. A little bit of closure here. Maybe a little bit of closure, not a huge amount. Vegas mass shooter Stephen Paddock opened fire after losing $1.5 million while gambling weeks before massacring 60. Newly released FBI files reveal. Now again, is the question here going to be, did he actually lose this while gambling? Or did he lose this before? Or did the FBI forge a log in the casino's records so that they could come back out and say, "No, see, this is why you did it. It had nothing to do with us. Stop looking over here." From Melissa Guzman for DailyMail.com. The Vegas shooter, Stephen Paddock, killed 60 people and injured hundreds more after losing $1.5 million gambling weeks before the shooting, new FBI files reveal. In an FBI interview with the gunman's fellow gambler, detailed in hundreds of pages of documents made public this week, suggests his loss could have been an influence. The other gambler, whose name is redacted in the document, said he believes this stress could have easily caused Stephen Paddock to snap. Paddock, 64, was a video poker player who relied on gambling as his main source of income. The revelation comes years after the FBI in Las Vegas and the local police department concluded their investigations without a definitive motive. This is still not a definitive motive. Although both agencies said Paddock burned through more than $1.5 million, became obsessed with guns, and distanced himself from his girlfriend and his family in the months leading up to the massacre. Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't. In a statement on Thursday, Vegas police defended their inconclusive findings and dismissed the importance of the documents released this week in response to an open records request from the Wall Street Journal. So, take this for however you'll take it. I would throw a grain of salt with it, honestly. But at least we have something to go on at this point instead of just wondering how a guy got all those guns up into a Las Vegas hotel, one of the most secure facilities in the world. A Las Vegas hotel, one of the most surveilled facilities in the world. Second, probably only to Congress. But he just managed to get all those guns up into his room and just start shooting. From NBC. Chinese spy balloons gathered intelligence from sensitive U.S. military sites despite U.S. efforts to block it. No way! And yet it could still keep flying guided? I told you that weeks ago. From Courtney Kube and Carol E. Lee, the Chinese spy balloon that flew across the U.S. was able to gather intelligence from several sensitive American military sites, despite the Biden admin's efforts to block it from doing so. You don't say. According to 2 current senior U.S. officials and 1 former senior admin official. China was able to control the balloon so it could make multiple passes over some of the sites, at times flying figure-8 formations, and transmit the information it collected back to Beijing in real time. No shit, Sherlock. I think everybody who has 2 functioning brain cells knows that. I know we're trying to honk and say the Biden admin is infallible and they stopped it and don't worry and they did this and that. No, everybody knows full well that that thing transmitted. Everybody knows that. But they're going to keep trying to say, oh no, they didn't get enough. Alright, and I said that we had an Easter story. And then I got 2 funny ones to finish off with. And then we're actually going to skip Twitter trending tonight too, because I want you guys back with your family. So, from Reuters, Filipinos nailed to the cross in Easter ritual frowned on by church. Yeah, I wouldn't do that either. Nearly 20 Filipinos and a Danish filmmaker were nailed to crosses to reenact the crucifixion of Christ on Good Friday, a practice the Roman Catholic Church frowns upon as a distortion of the Easter message. The annual Philippine ritual draws thousands of spectators to San Fernando, 50 miles north of Manila, to see penitents flagellate themselves in a series of crucifixions in a recreation of Christ's death on the cross. It was a great experience between me and God, 40-year-old Danish film director and stunt coordinator Lasse Spang Olsen, who stayed on the cross for more than 10 minutes, told Reuters before being treated for his wounds. It was great. It was fun. Why? Why would you do that? I guess I understand the idea of trying to see what Christ's sacrifice and his passion were. I get it. But I couldn't bring myself to go do that and make a mockery of what Christ did for our sins. I can't do that. I can't bring myself that far. That feels like mocking to me. So, they're doing it in the Philippines. If you want to do it, I bet you they'll prop you up. You won't catch me doing it, I can tell you that right off the bat. Penance does not mean you hurt yourself, because the body is a temple that houses the spirits of Archbishop Aniceto Paciano of San Fernando. The carnival-like atmosphere in the Cutad village draws thousands of foreign and local tourists each year. British casino worker Emily Ebsworth, 24, said she had never seen anything like it. I don't like it, she told Reuters. It's bloody and gory. So, the nails that they use to hold human beings up is not like the finishing nail that you go and get from the from the hardware store. It's like a nail like this, and this frickin' long that they drive through the cross into your hand. A gigantic square spike. No thank you. I'm grateful for the sacrifice that Christ made on the cross for me. That does not mean I want to do it myself. Or feel like I have any reason to. Alright, going from that for our last 2 here. From WGN 9. Stunning! James Webb Telescope provides new view of Uranus. I'm actually going to read this because Mr. Scott wants more scientific stuff off of this, but I legitimately put this article on the stack so we could read that headline. That is the legitimate reason I added this to the stack today. This is from John Ross Ferrara. After capturing the best photos of Neptune in decades in 2022, NASA has pointed the James Webb Telescope's high-powered lenses at the solar system's other ice giant, Uranus. Maybe you should get thicker pants. NASA set the telescope's stunning views of Uranus. I can't do this with a straight face. Capture on February 6 provides a detailed look at the planet's faint, rarely photographed rings. There are rings of debris around Uranus? The new image features dramatic rings as well as bright features in the planet's atmosphere. NASA announced on April 6th the web data offer exquisite sensitivity for the faintest of dusty rings, which have only ever been imaged by two other facilities, the Voyager 2, as it flew past the planet in '86, and the Keck. I know it's not spelled the same, but are you serious? And the Keck Observatory with advanced adaptive optics. So there you go. NASA's found a new way to look at Uranus. I may be 38, but I still have the mind of a college student. And the last one that I have on the stack for today. A little bit of Babylon Bee humor for you. Budweiser replaces Clydesdales with cows dressed as horses. That one's funny too, it looks like. In a natural continuation of its push for diversity and celebration of transgender lifestyles, Anheuser-Busch has announced the company will be replacing the iconic Clydesdales with cows that identify and dress like horses. We feel this is a natural next step, said Anheuser-Busch CEO Brandon Whitworth. If we're going to bend reality and ignore all the basic understanding of science and biology with our Bud Light brand, then it only makes sense to make that philosophy consistent across our other brands, including the classic Budweiser advertising campaigns. The beverage giants scour the nation in search of dairy cows that live their lives as horses. I was very excited to receive a phone call from the Budweiser marketing folks. The dairy farmer at Herman said, "I just can't get this group of cows to produce any milk because they insist on pretending to be horses. I was ready to put down the whole lot of them, but now they can actually make me some money with this ad campaign." I love it. I love it. It's amazing. I'm glad I got to finish with that. Alright, you guys, go back to your families. It's Good Friday. Easter's around the corner here. We got everything done. We got through the entire stack, including all the monstrosity of stack that we had to push off to the side because of the Donald Trump arrest. Bring your families in for the next episode of Contemporary. I'm trying to keep the language curbed. Sometimes I fail. But bring your families in, come back and join them. But yeah, have a great Easter, everyone. No stream tomorrow. The episode that I'm going to be on after this is not live streamed. So I'll have details in the Discord when that gets released, including where to view it and how to see it. Palby's a good guy. I've been on Clone World Chronicles before, and I'm going to be on it again. And I think we're going to be talking to Crispy, too, who's also in our Discord. I think that's going to be the first time I've ever talked to Crispy in person. But, yeah, that'll be fun, too. So I don't even know what we're going to talk about. I just agreed to that while I was setting up the show. So those details will be in the Discord, and when it gets released, I will talk about it on Contemporary as well, so you can see it there, and include links to it in the live chat and in the description, so join us for that. Otherwise, let's throw some outro music up and head out of here. I'm going to see if I can get fish fry before we start with CWC. Luckily, the place is close. So, thank you everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. We'll be back here on Monday for our post-resurrection episode of Contemporary. It's going to be a great time. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. But otherwise, enjoy your families, enjoy your Easter, and say a prayer to the Lord that He has saved you. We will see you next time over here on Contemporary. Looking forward to that, and we'll be back here for that. More news, more headlines. We'll see what the futures look like, what the markets will look like coming into Monday, and more over here on Contemporary. And until next time, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.